Hi, Year 12. Going to go over Dulce Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen with you, following on from what we did in class today, just in case you didn't get all of it down, because as we said, we are doing a close study for Module B, and which means that you need to engage closely with the text. The previous video was on rhyme scheme, and in the rhyme scheme video, I have touched on the rhyme scheme of this particular poem, so I'm not going to go over that again. I've also touched briefly on the Iambic Pentameter, but again, I'm not going to go over that in too much detail here, but I am going to talk about a couple of little things. So firstly, with the iambs, it's that heartbeat, that boom, 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 boom. It's a heartbeat. It's an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. So when we look at the this first line here, bent double like old beggars under sacks. If it was in the iambs, it would be bent double like old beggars under sacks, and it would be unstressed followed by stressed. But when you look at those words, that's not how we say it. It's bent double, like old beggars under sacks, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, we cursed through sludge, till on the haunting flares we turned our backs, and towards our distant rest began to trudge. So it's, like I said on the other video, Owen is playing with conventional poetic techniques, and even though it appears to be one thing on the surface, when you scratch away at the surface, you get something else. And I do go into it quite a bit of detail on that in the other video, so I'm not going to go any further on it. But it's just another thought of where you could argue that, an iamb, it is like a heartbeat. It's that boom, 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 or the dum, da dum. And here, because this is a poem about death ultimately, and we have this erratic heartbeat that is being caused by playing with the iambs, so that rhythm gets disturbed. Okay, moving on. The next thing to notice is when you're looking at a poem is just look straight away at the punctuation. Notice we have comma, comma, no punctuation here, full stop here. So we have enjambment, which means that we have the idea is flowing through the lines. It's not stopping at the end of each line, which means again, that's a poetic device that is making sure that this idea continues. Other things that we can look at, bent double like old beggars, coughing like hags. Bent double, knock-kneed. We get the idea that these are, it's a lexical chain, and it's creating the visual imagery that they're older, that they're the premature aging, they've aged before their time, knock-kneed, coughing like hags, cursed. It's that k sound, which sounds like a cough. So the actual language choices themselves within the actual sounds are creating the coughing sound as we go. The sludge being the mud. So we've got this, and you've got here the like old beggars under sacks and coughing like hags. So we've got that simile where he's comparing the soldiers to the elderly, to the homeless, to beggars is someone who is, there's no monetary worth there. They're on the streets. I was about to say dispossessed, but that's not the word. But there's, for the life of me, I can't remember the word I want to use. Sorry, Year 12. But there's a disconnect there. And then moving on. So cursed, we went through that in detail today. The cursed, we've got layers of meaning because of the connotations. Firstly, there's the swearing, and then there's the actual, when we curse someone, when we put a curse on someone, we're wishing something bad to happen to them. So it's like they're cursing the authorities that have put them there. And then we go on the haunting flares. It's an interesting choice of word. The flares are we talked about in class, a signal for help, and yet in this particular context, it's referring to the flares that were used on no man's land to light up the area to show the soldiers so that they could be shot at, so they could be killed. So it's an oxymoron, the haunting flares, and it's changing the meaning of the flares, because it's no longer a thing of help, but it's ghost-like. Haunting is ghost-like, but it's something to be scared of. And so they turn their backs, and because of enjambment, we keep going on till on the haunting flares, we turn our backs and towards our distant rest began to trudge. Distant, it's like the idea that the rest is not nearby, and rest is desire to sleep. It kind of goes with this trudge that's happening. So we get an idea that this is this slow march, and rest becomes a lexical chain with asleep. Notice that we go to a simple sentence, men marched asleep. A very simple sentence after this complex sentence here, and then we go back into some more complex sentences again down here. Alliteration of the M and the M also, and with the M here, the men marched many. So then we have the many had lost their boots but limped on, bloodshot. All went lame, all blind, drunk with fatigue, deaf even to the hoots of tired, outstripped 5 nines that dropped behind. Here, tired, it's part of that lexical chain with rest, asleep. We have the accumulation happening here, but limped on, bloodshot, all went lame, all blind. Note the repetition of the L sound as well, or the alliteration of the L sound, which is a l sound. It's slowing it down, and it's like a languishing. If you combine it with you've got the the limped, the bloodshot, all went lame or blind, you've got these long vowel sounds. And we've talked about how the vowel sounds are used, the long vowel sounds are used to create emotion. So we've got this building up of emotion. Drunk with fatigue, another word in that lexical chain. The metaphor here, drunk with fatigue. So it's this idea that they're so tired that they're moving about as if they've lost control of, when someone, I hope you don't know actually, year 12, but if someone's drunk and they've had too much alcohol, they can't walk straight. They are sleepy. They're not coherent in their language, and they move about like they sway when they walk and they fall over when they walk. So this idea of drunk with fatigue is that the tiredness has produced that same kind of result. And then deaf even to the hoots. So we've got this sensory, or this loss of senses, and deaf even to the hoots, the onomatopoeia of tired, outstripped 5 nines. And it's this idea that the artillery shells that are being dropped are also just as fatigued as the men. It's like there's this enduring nature of this war that it's just like it just keeps going on, and it's repetitive, and it is for both sides and for everything there. It's just, there is that sense of fatigue that it's just dragging on through the sludge as they trudge. Okay, you've also got here the pronoun, the collective pronoun we. So the persona, Owen, is putting himself right in there with the rest of the soldiers. And then we have this idea, because they're deaf even to the hoots, that loss of sensory input has resulted in the hiding from one danger here, that they're not even aware of the danger that's coming behind them. Then we jump, gas, quick boys. This is like dialogue. So it's like he's telling a story. It's sort of shifting away from the poetry to reading more like prose. So gas, quick boys, an ecstasy of fumbling. There's a couple things going on with this word. Firstly, you do have arguably a religious allusion with the word ecstasy. You also have this ecstasy of fumbling, like it's a sexual encounter. It's reminiscent of a sexual encounter, that climactic moment, fumbling around, trying to get, trying to have this relationship happen, and then fit in the clumsy helmets. This idea that it's the helmet itself is clumsy. They were big, they were difficult to put on, and trying to make this thing that doesn't want to go on properly to go on, and just in time. This is important too. Time is the enemy of war. As we talked about in class today, when we looked it up in our web quest, that the average life expectancy of a soldier in the First World War, once they were in the trenches, was 6 weeks. It's this idea that time is running out, and we get this, just in time, this sense of urgency of trying to get them on. So it's like death is there all the time, but someone is still yelling out, someone. So now we've gone to an individual. We've moved away from up here the we, and we've gone, and sorry, we also, don't forget, here we've got the all. So again, all inclusive, and now we've got someone. So we have an individual, but they're not identified. So it's an absence of identity. And I think that is really important, that there is no identity there, because we talked contextually, we have 9 million soldiers who were killed in the First World War, and we get this idea that this someone is just one of those 9 million. So even though they're individualized, they're still just part of the many. But someone was still yelling out and stumbling, floundering. There's that internal rhyme that's happening there. Like a man in fire or lime, like another simile. And fire or lime is a corrosive substance. And so there's this idea of burning, and of course the gas was creating a burning from the inside. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light. The misty panes are the goggles themselves, where they couldn't see through, and dim. It's like, again, the lexical chain with deaf up here, the loss of senses, the loss of feedback from the sensory input all around. Dim through the misty panes and thick green light, as under a green sea I saw him drowning. Under a green sea, the metaphor, the idea that this gas is everywhere. It's not this small thing, it's the size of a sea, it's the size of an ocean. And we have the lexical chain between these two words, sea and drowning. So it's this idea that where that connects the two words, that the gas is not just something that's burning up here, but also something that is all-encompassing. Then we go to the next stanza, and we have a shift again. In all my dreams, all. So it's, this is a recurring pattern now. In all my dreams, we get an idea that we're talking about a nightmare now. In all my dreams, before my helpless sight, we've got the reflective, the possessive pronoun. So we're now talking about the persona. So my dreams, my helpless sight, and notice helpless. It's the idea that he can't do anything about what's happening, but before my helpless sight, which sort of links to the dim sight that's coming through from the misty panes, he plunges at me. Plunges, it's a continuation of that lexical chain we see and drowning, connecting these two. He plunges at me, guttering, choking, drowning. It's a tricolon there, and again, that drowning and the repetition of the drowning to force that home.